What is going on, everybody? BobbyFi back with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. We're going to be talking about NFL week 10 now, actually. We're past the halfway point. We've got a lot of interesting things going on. It is week 10, right, Sheet? I'm not getting that wrong. I think I just for some reason I started to almost say 9, but yeah, it's week 10.
It is week 10, and the only reason I really know like what weeks they are is because I spend so much time on survivor pools that I'm always like, no, like this is 10. I know who I'm using in 12. I know I'm saving from 15. Like, I basically know the entire NFL schedule by heart. So I do know a week it is. So that's good news. I don't know who I'm going to play this week because again I'm just so psyched to talk to you about it because I look through my stuff and like who I like and it's kind of a similar thing, man. I have to figure out some way to get off the chalk, I guess. So we'll hopefully you'll help me with that.
Yeah, I think maybe we can come up with some things. Let's get it started. Why don't we call your screen up and we'll go game by game.
And just for those of you who've been interested or whatever, I had so I'm I don't know if I went over all the details of this 2+2 contest I'm in, but the way it is the first 13 weeks people kind of compete week by week or something, and then whoever's got whatever 3 people have the most or 4 people have the most points after week, I think 13 go into the playoffs. So you basically just have to hold your own. And I'm like in third, not too much ahead of fourth. I don't care about that. I got like 30 points on the 5th place guy. So, but then what happens is now the people that are kind of outside looking in the bubble, they're going to be more aggressive. So I have to be just a little more aggressive to kind of, keep a little bit of pace ahead of them because someone's probably going to get there, So,
right.
So it's interesting. So this is not necessarily going to be my lineups, whatever, because I'm actually not exactly sure what I want to do in my Cassius type lineups, and hopefully we'll work on that a little bit also.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can do both. This first game is going to be a weird one because it's weird we don't even have a total. I'm surprised that it's taken this long because there was a. I mean, I understood early in the week, but now I don't really understand why we still don't have a total. I'm a little bit I have some mild interest in this game, but I also would be okay just sort of letting it go. I don't know. I sort of feel like in between on this game in general. Outside, I sort of like DeAndre Swift. I sort of like McLaren. I don't really have a lot of interest elsewhere. Antonio Gibson, like we can always be talking about that shot all the time. He wasn't quite the same for us the last couple weeks, or the last week, I should say. I don't know, man. I think I'm mostly going to stay away from this game in the end.
Yeah, I'm going to stay away too. You know who is showing up as a possibility, actually, and this is a guy I literally haven't played a single single share, but I played a little, maybe one share this whole season, is maybe DeAndre Swift as a running back option. But that was really the only guy. I shouldn't actually say that because I think that he might be out. That's what I was thinking of. Hawkinson might be out for Detroit. But I did have some interest in Gibson on the Washington side. I was hoping, I was keep my ears open to see if you really loved like Gibson. If you really loved Gibson, I would probably go a little heavier on him, because you know him a little better than I do. And DeAndre Swift is the only other guy I had some interest in this game.
Yeah, it's a weird situation because basically what's going to happen, and why I sort of think we shouldn't like rule out McKissick and Antonio Gibson. With Alex Smith in at quarterback, all you're going to get is these dump offs to the running backs. That's what he does. You had 14 targets last week for McKissick in a split running back role. That's absurd. You know what I mean? But that was because they were down by a bunch against the Giants. So a lot of it's going to be game script dependent. That could very likely be happening again. I don't mind the McKissick shock, but I think like I would probably stick with the Swift over those guys if it was me. And I actually think I probably will skip McLaurin this week. Wait till he gets a real quarterback there to pay that much for him. If he was a little cheaper, like the only guy who actually does stand out from a price standpoint that for Detroit to me, other than Swift, is I just think like you might. I don't know. I'm open to the. I want to see what happens with Golladay coming back, assuming that he's back.
Are we presuming he's back?
If he's back, I mean, as of right now, I've got projections of him, and I've got other places saying that he's doubtful. So we'll see what happens on his practice today. I will probably get actually information on it right after this show. Anyway, but he would be. I'd have some interest in him at 5.9. But really, overall, this is not my favorite game. DeAndre Swift would be the only one I'll have probably above the field on.
You like either the defenses? Because I have the Lions right now plugged in as my defense in this cash game.
Yeah, I think the Lions make a lot of sense as a defense for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Moving on.
Well, this is weird. I didn't really look at like the order of these games. It looks as though a lot of my interest is going to come later, but we'll get there, I guess. Jacksonville, Green Bay. So again, I don't know why this is. You know what? Like 2 years ago in DFS, maybe less so. Maybe, I'm not sure, but people really made a lot of the matchups and like who people were playing against and things like that. And in the last like 2 years, they've become less sensitive to that. So I think that might be the reason why I keep running into the same issue of every week the same guys look to be the best plays, right? Because I guess it used to be that the projections would account for, different matchups and things like that. I think now they just like project them the same every week, I suppose. I guess that's why when it happens, because like literally every week, Devontae Adams is like the best play, right? I mean, that's what it looks like.
Yeah, but that's sort of always been the case, though. It was Julio.
Is that true? Okay.
Yeah, it was the only difference before was there was 3 guys who were all putting up the same insane output, and it was Julio Jones, Hopkins, and Antonio Brown.
Okay.
That's the only difference, because that's why I think you're seeing such extreme ownership. And also, I mean, we've seen this Jacksonville team just get lit up through the air. They might have the worst secondary in football. They might have the worst secondary in football of any team in a number of years. They're awful. And Devontae Adams is incredibly expensive. And my suggestion is, if you can get him into your cash game lineup, to try and do so.
Well, the guy I really want to get into my cash game lineup, if I can do so, is Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
So I mean, not to overshoot our bounds, but Mike Davis is basically kind of a free square this week. So you're going to have like only spots for 2 running backs, really, if you want to go 3 or whatever it is. And I think Aaron Jones for me is the depends how much you want to spend, I guess. But I think Aaron Jones is probably my second favorite running back of the week. It just sets up so perfectly for him. They're a enormous favorite. So that means that they're probably going to be running the ball more than otherwise. He can get work out of the backfield. He's just kind of, I won't say a lock. It's freaking football, right? But I do think that he's like a really, really strong play. You could also, if you want to go full Green Bay onslaught, you could play the tight end if you want. I mean, he won't be as highly owned this week, this Tanyan, because basically Darren Waller is a great play, or other people maybe. But so if you want to do that, you want to play, you want to play Rodgers, Jones, Tanyan, Adams, Green Bay defense, or something like that. That's one thing that I don't know if it's worked recently. It used to work, I think. That's another thing you could do.
Well, it works in theory better for like cash games or small field tournaments.
Oh, okay.
But in large field tournaments, you want your defenses to score a touchdown. Now, you want to get lucky. You can't obviously count on that. But if you're going to have the winning lineup in the Millionaire Maker, there's a pretty good chance, especially these days with all the turnovers that are going on, that you're going to have to need that defense that scores a touchdown to win that size of a field tournament. Okay. So I don't think it matters as much. And actually, that would be negative correlation, because then the other team gets the ball at the 1 yard line, and it would be better for your defense not to score anyway.
Okay.
But I mean, sure, it's always fine. It definitely has makes some correlative sense. I just don't know in large field GPPs that it really is that a factor anymore.
You like anybody from Jacksonville?
I think I do want to say that this game is going to have some as of right now, is projected to have some pretty severe winds. And 20 to 25 mile an hour right now is the projection. It's still Friday, so we don't know for sure. But I would just be a little bit nervous, maybe that's the reason why you could fade some of this crazy heavy chalk. Now, if the weather's still like this, you might be able to do what we did I did some of last week, was everybody shifted away from certain games they were afraid of. Now, it didn't work entirely, but it was the week before. It was the New Orleans and the Bears had a bad report all week, but by the time the game played, it actually was pretty good weather. And every other game was a nightmare week for all the weather. Well, this is one of the 2 worst games of the weather-wise. So, which would also lend itself to what you're saying about the ground game. I need to see if Jamaal Williams is in the game before I commit to Aaron Jones. It's weird because Aaron Jones is obviously a great play, and he's putting up huge numbers anyway. But it is pretty, like, if you look at their splits, I mean, first of all, the running back position overall for the Packers has been absolutely incredible if you combine these guys' numbers. But I mean, Jamaal Williams, like, I know some of those games were without Aaron Jones. Jamaal Williams does get work when Aaron Jones is in there. I mean, remember we had that one Monday night game where Jamaal Williams was hardly owned, and he ended up breaking. He won the slate for everybody, and it didn't make any sense to me but that's what they did. They just let him take about 40% of the work. So it's enough of a reason for me to try and find a way to fade Aaron Jones. The truth is, only one game this year Aaron Jones has had would I really be thrilled with, and that was against Detroit in week 2. I don't know. Of course, on paper, it makes a lot of sense. I think you can pivot over and for 1/3 the ownership, just play the guy on the other side too. One thing is Green Bay has had some trouble against certain running backs, and James Robinson is the real deal and will probably be flooded with targets. So I guess the long story short of this all is that I'm trying to find a way to fade what I think is pretty decent chalk in Aaron Jones. And this is my argument for it. So I'll, as of right now, I'm going to be below the field on Aaron Jones, but it's not because I don't like the play, and I'll be above the field on James Robinson.
Jamaal Williams is only 4,000.
Jamaal Williams is a really interesting long shot, large field GPP play. Large field, long shot. And if you play him, I think you have to play him with our other 4K guy, Mike Davis. I think that's the route you go. Because if you try to play him over and get more points from him than Mike Davis, even if you get more, you're not going to get that much more. But if he puts up like 18 and Mike Davis puts up like 25, then you've got 45, 43 points from your minimum cost running backs. You can do whatever else you want in the rest of your lineup, and you're pretty good to go.
What kind of ownership is Jamaal Williams expected to get?
0.
I mean, is it possible that I mean, really, like if he wasn't out last week, if it was just your normal situation where Aaron Jones and then Jamaal Williams is getting like kind of backup, not even backup work, but
well, remember that Williams. The only thing I point out is that Williams did miss those. Jones missed 2 of the games that the games, but he did have a good game with him too. So I think he's an interesting large field GPP play, but also the blowout factor. Maybe he does get more of the carries. Maybe he breaks one because he gets a few more snaps because they sort of are comfortably in control, and maybe they just let him. Maybe they feed him for it.
I'm interested in this. I'm going to play him. I'm going to play him a little bit.
I've got him on my list right now as a long shot play.
No, I'm going to play him in a couple of million maker lineups.
I like it, man. Yeah, I mean that's where I would count that as a long shot tournament.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to move on?
All right, you ready to move on to Duke Johnson revenge? Is that the story here?
I guess.
Yeah, and you know what? It's people that have lost family fortunes playing Duke Johnson have the same response, right?
Right.
Just when you think it's impossible for him not to get zillions of touches and work, Cleveland managed to hold him back for 5 years or however long that they wouldn't give him the ball. So I don't know. I mean, look, projection-wise, he's honestly just a standout play. If you think he's actually going to get all the work that a running back in that type of system is going to get, which he'll get. He could catch the ball out of the backfield, he'll get some runs. I think it's a really, really good play. He's probably, I imagine he's going to get really highly owned. No, and that was really the only interest I had on either side of this game. It was either Duke Johnson or not Duke Johnson.
Yeah, I get it. So this game has the most severe weather on the slate. Otherwise, I would be trying to get it into stacks and all kinds of nonsense in this game. I really think but the one thing I'd say though is that Washington played in a very similar horrible passing type of environment last week. Now this week could be worse. They've got wind gusts up to 40 miles an hour, which is for a football game, that's a whole different game. I think it benefits Duke Johnson actually. So I actually think that all of this. Obviously, Duke makes a lot of sense. I think he makes sense in cash to be the real guy, the guy you pair with Davis in that situation. Bringing back the Jamaal Williams things, how often does he score Duke Johnson here? I don't know. It's an interesting kind of question. Probably, not very often, but at the same time, you are saving 1,000. You could do your lineups differently. It is going to be hard to ignore Duke Johnson here. I hate playing these kind of chalky situations, especially for guys who aren't like bell cow bats, guys who you're relying on them catching the ball out of the backfield. But realistically, they are an underdog in this game. They should have to throw the ball some. I hate playing Deshaun Watson patched into his running backs because he doesn't like to do it very much. He wants to push the ball back downfield. But, it's a little too much work to ignore.
Yep. All right. And nothing from Cleveland. What's his name back, by the way? Is Chubb back?
Chubb is going to be back. I actually like Chubb a lot, but it's hard for me to justify. Again, if I'm going to talk about running backs worried about Aaron Jones losing something to the other guys, I've got Aaron Jones in a better matchup. Well, this is a pretty great matchup too. I've got Aaron Jones, but you're going to get Kareem Hunt and Chubb both. I mean, they could both rush for 100 yards in this game.
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to if they have a lead, for example, I don't know how much they're going to like pound Chubb, and he's often injured. He's often injured.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It seems like I mean, honestly, you could use that argument to make that that maybe Kareem Hunt is an interesting sneaky play. I'm not going to go there, but I just think it's I like both running backs. I think they both have good days here. I don't think they're going to be on my lineups. Ready to move on?
Yep.
All right, let's do Philly and New York.
I had no interest in this game at all, with the exception of just wild long shot play Wayne Gallman.
Interesting. So you have no interest in Miles Sanders?
No.
Because I think if I was playing cash this week, he would be my other cash running back. I would play those. At first look, Duke Johnson, Mike Davis, and Miles Sanders make a lot of sense to me. Miles Sanders is one of the best running backs in football. He's one of the best players around, and he doesn't get anywhere near the credit he deserves. He's had some injury issues. He's had a million games where they can't use him running the ball at all because they're down so much they have to be throwing it all the time. And Wentz likes to push the ball to the tight ends, and so you don't get as much work from him in those situations. This is a game that they should be competitive in against a team that can't stop the run. And we haven't seen him in a couple weeks. I think Miles Sanders is significantly too cheap.
That's awesome. Okay, I didn't even think about him.
I think he's going to be, and I think he is the chalky play too. Actually, I think he's, as of right now, assuming that he plays, of course. I have extreme interest in him, and I'm going to go another step. I actually like this game. What's that?
He'll play.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he will as of right now. I'm just, you know how it goes, Sheets. Every time we say something these days, you never know what's going to happen with COVID and everything else. It's a wild world, man. A guy who I believe in, and I was listening to Matthew Berry talk about a little bit, Jalen Reagor. I like this kid, and Matthew Berry really sold me on him. I think you're going to start seeing more and more work go his way. So he's the other guy. He's the cheap receiver if you want to go with sort of a different type of build that you can you don't really need that many cheap receivers because there's a lot of value at the running back spot this week. But I do think Jalen Reagor, and then on the other side, I don't mind either Slayton or Shepard, although I don't think I'm going to end up going there.
Yeah. Okay. Tampa, Carolina. So let's start that. Mike Davis is, and this is it was a tough spot for DraftKings, I guess. I mean, they made their prices, thinking that McCaffrey was playing, and then, they just missed it by a couple of hours or whatever. Then McCaffrey was ruled out, I guess, or went to doubtful, and so this is what they were left with. But I'll tell you, there's other Carolina stuff, like DJ Moore is a really good play also.
Do you mind if I stop us real quick and just go back for 1 second? I think I really made a mistake there, and I think that maybe we both should have looked at it a little further. I think the Giants, and maybe they really are fading Tate out of this rotation entirely, and the price of the receivers, I actually ended up getting onto them a little bit because Tuttle was talking about them. Tuttle from Murder Grinders was talking about them the other last week, and I think that if the game flow had gone differently against that Washington team, that you might have seen some bigger performances. I think that Slayton and Shepard are actually pretty solid plays here. I just want to jump back to that before we go back to the next game. Sorry about that.
All right. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to own them. I think it's definitely whatever. I'm just and I have to tell you that in the last 4 or 5 weeks, I mean, I haven't really done that well in the Millie Maker on DraftKings, but the lineups that always seem to be competitive with the Daniel Jones lineups because they're always 0.8% owned, and they seem to be throwing the ball. So okay, I mean, I'm on it. I don't know if I'm going to get there, but I'll take another look at that for sure.
Maybe Evan I'm sorry, I should have mentioned the other one. Evan Ingram is the obvious one, actually. I didn't realize he was only 4.5. For some reason, I had the wrong screen pulled up. Evan Ingram is a phenomenal play at tight end.
So just to kind of trot out my ratings or whatever it is, believe it or not, the Carolina passing attack is actually my third favorite stack.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do Bridgewater, DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and how insane would it be to do that and line us without Mike Davis and win everything. So I'm into it. You listen. Maybe it's just a bad system I have. Maybe it's whatever. But if it's showing up like that, I'm gonna do a little bit of it just to test out my shit. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna play some of it and I would even play Bridgewater if I wanted to not be quite as off the board. I could play Bridgewater with Davis with one of those receivers or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
and I'll do that. And I think it's an interesting way to go. Tampa, boy, did they get freaking roasted the other day against New Orleans. That was I was not anticipating that. And we have Godwin is limited again. Goodness gracious, Godwin's in. I would use him in a run back with Carolina. Ronald Jones, I guess, is here. I never really know what they're going to do with these running backs. So I don't know if I'm going to get to either Fournette or Ronald Jones. But again, that was my first look. Is Mike Davis is strong playing cash and probably a lock in GPPs too, I suppose. But I like the receivers. I like the passing game a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Carolina side. I can't seem to find anything I really want to play from Tampa Bay personally. But I mean, Mike Davis, it's going to be hard. If you want to try and find the route, I don't really know how to do this because it doesn't make just the amount of usage that they give to these backs and the way they used him sort of in a McCaffrey-esque role. But we can say he did have some bad games, and this is the best run, one of the best run defenses in the league, and one of the best in terms of limiting runs to the running pass catching running backs. But he is 4K. I wish he was 6K and we could talk about fading him easier. But this is a tough fade. And I agree 100%. I think DJ Moore is I mean, you know me, I'm always going to say DJ Moore, but I'm going to play some Curtis Samuel also. They really are looking at him a lot, and they're giving him rushing into whenever I see them starting to give the guys more attempts running the ball, and Samuel's one of those guys. It's just when he gets active, then all of a sudden it seems like he goes off from a receiving standpoint, and they seem to be really trying to keep him pretty active. So I agree with all these guys. The one guy I'm not going to play any of is Robbie Anderson, but I will play the other two guys quite a bit. I think Robbie Anderson has really been the most overdrafted player this season, or one of the most overdrafted. He hasn't had one. He has had one game that you would take. You know what I mean? And that game wasn't on his slate. He had a nice game. He's had some nice games, some fine games, but nothing that you really want that badly. At 6.1, whereas DJ Moore, I think more upside anyway. From first of all, he's had three better games or three games that are better. Only one game Robbie Anderson's had has been in the 20s. He's got three, including 20 against this team already. He's also 1,000 cheaper. And I like him and Curtis Samuel quite a bit. So I agree with you on this passing attack.
Yeah.
All right.
You want to move on?
Yes, sir.
So from the Raiders game, my favorite play in the game is Darren Waller. He's my favorite tight end on the slate by a pretty decent amount. I would say a lot. Let's put it that way. And I don't know, man. I don't really have it in me to play Derek Carr, Waller, and Renfro or something like that. But maybe I should. I'm not sure.
No. Even if you play those guys, don't play Derek Carr.
Okay.
I just can't. I mean, look at it. He went off completely in that KC game. That's about his absolute nut ceiling.
I guess
he put up 24 fantasy points. You know what I mean? They scored 41.
Right.
I personally just can't do it myself. I would rather turn around and play lock than him.
You like Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I don't know where he's going to fall in. I prefer Miles Sanders, but okay. I would have Jacobs, at the same price, just right near him. And I like you. I like Darren Waller quite a bit. I like Noah Fant on the other side of this. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be doing a 2 tight end week, but I do have some tight ends that I like. I don't think it's quite the 2 tight ends, but to play for all of it. But Fant, Waller, and Ingram all stand out to me as being really, really, really good plays. And it's funny because Jerry Jeudy, I would love in this. I hate what the Raiders do. They force everything underneath and in over the middle. But if Jerry Jeudy is going to get 14 targets, he's got 24 targets his last 2 games. I think we should start considering this. This is probably one of the 5 or 6 most talented. Maybe not that. Maybe that's too high. Somewhere between 6 and 10, or in the league, maybe. I mean, he's an incredible. He's got incredible talent, and they're utilizing it. Unlike Henry Ruggs on the other side. So I think Jerry Jeudy's an interesting play.
Yeah, that was going to be my my run back if I what you call it.
Yeah.
If I went, if I did the Raiders.
Right. All right, you ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah, just one sec. Yeah, so the next game, Buffalo, Arizona. Yeah, this is going to be, I imagine, like every week, right? I mean, this is going to be the chalk game. Literally both sides of the ball. There's a lot of action, and it's really between both these quarterbacks for my cash game. Top quarterback to play between Allen and Kyler Murray. And also on just a regular basis, both these main stacks look to be my two favorites. So Josh Allen, Diggs, and Brown on Buffalo, and Murray, Hopkins, and actually you can play either Fitzgerald or Kirk. Maybe Fitzgerald, I don't know, but either of them. But I think that it's a pretty chalky but very logical game stack, and that's pretty much all I have from this.
Yeah, I'm into this game. Obviously, it's going to be oddly like it's going to be a popular game. Like people are going to talk about it, but I'm trying to find the position players who people are actually going to play. You've got Christian Kirk, who people are probably going to play at this price. They're probably going to play him like 10%. I wouldn't imagine it would be much higher. DeAndre Hopkins is not going to be heavily owned because, I mean, just the history with White at corner. Assuming that White is in, I know he got banged up last week. I have him in right now, but I don't know for sure. We'll wait to see on Sunday, I guess, about that one. But yeah, tough matchup. But DeAndre Hopkins, and look, just because he has a few down weeks doesn't mean that. Well, actually, it's not even a few. He had 10 catches for 100 yards the game before. I'm okay with going back to him. I know he hasn't had that huge 35-45 game that we need, but he is a significant savings off Devontae Adams. I'm okay with maybe making him a little bit more of a priority, especially with the weather concerns in Green Bay as well as the blowout concerns. John Brown revenge is my favorite play in this game, and because of the price increase, I don't think you're going to see crazy ownership here. So I like.
What kind of ownership is Chase Edmonds going to get?
Well, I mean, the problem is probably zero because right now we're assuming Kenyon Drake is playing.
Oh, I didn't even realize that he was back. Oh, he's limited on Thursday. Okay.
Yeah, so there's a chance that we're assuming that he probably plays, which makes him in play, by the way, at 4,900 as well. But yeah, I think you want one of the. I mean, Diggs is going to be the popular guy to go to. It's interesting that Diggs is going to have so much more ownership than DeAndre Hopkins at basically the same price. That's just always going to be a spot where you might want to take advantage. So that's what I'm going to try and do and lean more on the Hopkins-Brown side of this game.
Yep. Nothing fancy on Buffalo, like no Cole Beasley or anything like that, or.
No, in fact, it's actually frustrating that they have enough, Beasley, Gabriel Davis, like that. These guys, he's gotten better at spreading the ball around sort of everybody. And when they haven't been in bad weather games, he's really spread the ball out to all the receivers. So I'm still just going to focus on the main two. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Cole Beasley had a good game or Gabriel Davis.
Okay. You want to move on?
Yes, sir.
So New Orleans, San Francisco. I like two things from this game. It's going to be nothing fancy. I like Alvin Kamara on running back, and I like Saints defense for defense. So I wasn't really getting too much of anything on either side except for that. And I'll leave the rest to you.
Did we skip the Chargers Miami?
We did. So we can go back to it if you want.
Okay, I was on that one. I like San Francisco to cover in this game and in that game. I think they have a good chance to win this game.
Wow, all right.
They're getting their guys back. They've been good against the Saints team. They're, I like the odds you're getting. I think that they're, 3.5 to 1 is nice plus
from your mouth to God's ears, because they're going to be about 40% owned in Survivor this week, and I'm going to have 0 of them. So I am totally into you being right this week. Sure.
I hope so because I see this as being an interesting situation. I mean, we could say, so what do we do about Michael Thomas though? Like seriously, we didn't really get a real regular sample size because they didn't need to throw the ball after the second quarter the last game. I just feel like he's too cheap. Like I understand all the weirdness of what's been going on and everything, but I mean,
What is he? What
you're
is he?
talking about Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins being less than 10% owned, and they're both way too cheap in the same price range. And I just think I would mention some cheap running backs, and I think that you can play these guys along with those cheap running backs, and pay up at your receiver spots for Thomas.
I really think the Saints are just really into the screwing around that they do. I think they really love it. I mean, I think they love getting all these guys you never heard of touchdowns. I think they really get off on it. You know, I don't know. Whereas I think that, I don't know. I think when it comes down to it, I think Arizona's going to look for, you know, I don't know. I think Hopkins is a little safer than Thomas. Even though in the vacuum, like if it was normal, like Thomas would get like, you know, 15 targets a game, right? 10 receptions. He can get open whenever he wants. I mean, he's freaking Michael Thomas. He's awesome, you know. I just feel as though Peyton's got this like bag of tricks every week. He's all right, I got to get this guy. I got to get this offensive tackle a touchdown. I got to get this going. So I don't know, man. I don't know if
but they were always like that. And Michael Thomas was the best receiver in the NFL and was 10K. You know what I mean?
I guess so.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers spreads the ball out a ton too, but he also throws half of his passes to Devontae Adams. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so I actually think there's a really, you know, Brandon Ayuk obviously was out last week, right? I believe he was out last week.
Everybody was out.
Yeah, right. Richie James, because of it, got an insane workload.
He's good.
You know, on Thursday, and he had 9 catches for 184 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, sure did.
He's 4K. I think we should at least consider playing this guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure. I'm in.
You are, as long as you even know that there's at least any history of doing anything, that's good enough for me. And by the way, you know, maybe a guy like Mullins is, you know, maybe he has an easier time targeting, you know, in on him than he does on Ayuk. It's different, you know. Maybe they've got a different rapport in practice. I don't know. Like, I mean, that's for your first game to have 13 targets and 9 receptions for 184 yards is pretty, sort of stands out. So I sort of like that, and I agree with you. Kamara would be obviously the running back that I'd most want to pay up for, and that includes actually. I don't know. He's more expensive than Aaron Jones, but Kamara is the guy you'd bet. I guess I would bet on. I don't know. I love his floor more than I love his. He has a huge ceiling, but I don't love this matchup in general. I don't know. I guess Kamara, I'm going to end up probably not playing as much as the field is going to. I guess I'm struggling with that decision because I've got him listed, and I've got Aaron Jones, and I keep trying to fade both of them. And I actually the more I look at it, I feel like Aaron Jones is the one that might kill me more than Kamara. So.
All right. So let's go back.
Okay.
To LAC Miami. And I'm glad we are because I don't know, at this point, I mean, I think this game is really in play for me. And it's a little weird because it's a weird situation because Miami doesn't have the greatest pass defense, but on the other hand, I don't know. I kind of like it. Let's put it that way. I like both sides. I like Tua. I like Parker. I like who's the 3K guy? Jakeem Grant. And I liked the normal Clippers. Let's put it that way. Herbert and Williams and what's his name and Keenan Allen.
Yeah, another situation too, like where you hope maybe Tua does have that rapport with Jakeem Grant or whatever. I don't know. Like he's 3K, he's going to be popular, but not like crazy popular. I'm into that. I actually think the better thing to do is probably just spend up for Devontae Parker. I think he'll get it going again at some point, and him and Tua will find it.
Sure.
And I like this matchup a lot. So I would prefer Parker over Grant, but I'm going to play some Grant too. And I like Keenan Allen a ton on the other side. And
what about this running back situation over there?
I don't even know if there's anything we can do with it. I really don't. I mean, it seems to be so fluid. And Pope is supposed to be back this week too. I mean, you might have a 3-man thing. Kalen Ballage was the fourth guy a couple weeks ago. Now he's the first, or is he? I mean, it's just really hard to know. But I would go Parker and Allen as being my main plays from this game.
Okay.
All
right. So somebody made an interesting point is that this week, maybe for the first time in a while, there's more games in the late slate than in the early slate, right?
Yeah. I don't even remember the last time that happened ever.
Yeah. So for me, I don't know where the ownership is going to come in, but this game used to be the game that just always confused people, right? So Seattle, the Rams, they would either just light it up or just be ugly, and depending on kind of ownership, I suppose. And I like both sides of this. I like. I mean, look, Russell Wilson's great, and you could play Metcalf or Tyler Lockett or both if you want. That's the thing about the Mike Davis thing. It just lets you do a lot of stuff. But like the Rams, and what's annoying is that Seattle gives up a lot of passing yards, but the Rams don't like to pass. It seems. I don't know. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'm kind of into it, man. I'm kind of into playing Goff with Kupp and Woods, and maybe even a little Josh Reynolds, and maybe they're not going to. I mean, their ranking is like, not my top stack, but they're the top half of them, and they're probably going to be really low owned, I suppose. So I don't know.
No.
Oh, the Rams? No.
Oh, no.
Oh, well, forget.
I can just make a prediction right now. There is no way anybody's going to play Seattle the rest of the year and not be low owned. They're just
Against Seattle, you mean?
Against Seattle, yeah. They're just getting torched every game. There's no way the Rams can be low owned here.
Okay. Well, I do like Goff, Kupp, and Woods as a stack. I do like the Seattle guys also. To me, it's kind of an obvious game, right? So I guess the whole game's going to get ownership then. What's your take?
I think it is too, and I like it too. I like Kupp and Woods. I don't mind if you want to take a long shot on Josh Reynolds. I know this is probably not the week because there's other guys who are minimum cost, but they are looking at him. He's at 17 targets the last 2 weeks. He's put up some 15 to 12 in 2 of the last 3 weeks. Nothing huge, but again, one big play on top of that, and you have a monster week at a minimum cost guy, and they definitely look to him quite a bit in a scoring situation. So I wouldn't just write him off. I also think that there is an argument for Tyler Higbee. I don't know assuming that he plays this week, which he is supposed to, and he's healthy. He played last week and was sort of seemed limited, and they were sort of splitting it with Everett. I like Higbee. So those are the cheap. If you're going to take a shot on cheap exposure to this game, that those Reynolds and Higbee stood out to me a little bit. Don't know how much I'll get to them, but they just were the first guys who stood out to me. And then I love that you're going to get low ownership on DK Metcalf, so I'm going to go right back there and go ahead and play. Look, I'm just going to rotate these high-end receivers, man. I've got it figured out. I really like all these. I like the Hopkins. I like the Michael Thomas at lower than normal ownership. I like the Metcalf at lower ownership. And again, we found some cheap running backs, so why not play the cheaper high-end receivers that really carry the highest ceiling, regardless of matchup? And then, look, if you're going to play a stack of the game, I don't mind a Goff to Woods and Kupp, but I probably prefer one of the two with Reynolds instead, just because I like the other high-end receivers a little bit too much. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, ready to move on?
Yeah, so Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, I have a weird take on this. So Pittsburgh is one of the teams that I don't think is going to have a bye this year because of the way they had to reshuffle the schedules, I think.
Okay.
I think they're probably not going to, but I really think they should sit Ben this week. I mean, like he was hurt. All right, Big Ben. He was legit hurt. He has on the COVID list, so I don't know whether he has it or not, or they're hiding it or whatever it is. And they're obviously going to keep testing him. And look, if it's even remotely not 100% positive, they're going to roll him out there if they feel like it, right? They're 7-1, right? They're playing Cincinnati. Not that Cincinnati's bad or anything, but they're an 8-point favorite. I think they probably if they were really cared about their players, I mean they should sit him. They're not going to. So with that said, I don't think they're going to want him to do too much regardless. My initial take on this game, honestly, when I first thought, oh my God, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, and it's my type of game because Pittsburgh played like crap last week, right? Against Dallas on their hands and knees. Can't wait to put up a good freaking performance against the division rival. And we'll get Schuster, we'll get Deontay, we'll get freaking Claypool. Let's rock. We're gonna get Boyd on the other side or Higgins, whatever you want. I don't know, for whatever reason, I just got a feeling this is going to be a little uglier than I first thought. So I'm going to be off of this game, but I hate to hedge this way because I originally really liked it, but I don't know. That's just my feel for this. And if anybody really popped as like a great play, I would override that take. But I'm probably going to be off.
Yeah, I don't mind any of the, I mean, look, we just talked about other receivers that I like, but I don't mind any of these Cincinnati receivers. I think T. Higgins is going to be he's going to be like, him and Burrow have a special thing. They're going to be together for a long time. I also think Tyler Boyd's incredibly talented. And 2 years ago, AJ Green was one of the best 4 receivers in the NFL. So and he's had 20, whatever, even though he had the 1 week where he only had 5 targets last week, he was coming off 24 in the previous 2 games. They're going to have to throw the ball. I'm fine with those receivers taking shots there. I again, like with the Pittsburgh passing game, I just believe these guys all carry, pretty great upside. We haven't seen as much of it out of Juju until, he had to get a nice week last week. He put up 21 fantasy points, and it was 1 week where he finally got there for me in some lineups, but it wasn't quite enough compared to some of the other guys out there. I think I would side with Deontay Johnson followed by Claypool. I believe in these guys completely. And I think that, though, I'm probably, just because I like other guys, I'm probably going to only end up with like 10% of them maybe. All right, you want to sort of go back through it and talk about some favorite plays?
Yeah, so I'm going to just, again, remind myself of the best plays, like cash and position-wise, and I guess then my favorite stacks, too. So I'll just do it that way. Running backs, Mike Davis, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Duke Johnson. Nothing particularly fancy about those. My 2 quarterbacks, cash situations were Murray and Allen. Tight end, Darren Waller. Wide receiver, Devontae Adams. But with regard to stacks, again, my favorites are the chalky ones, honestly. The Buffalo, Seattle, the Buffalo, Arizona,
Yeah.
and the Seattle Rams. But if I had to do kind of like an off the boardish type of thing, I don't even know what off the board is going to do. I'm gonna take that 3K Jakeem Grant and use that to make some Miami LAC stuff. That's, I don't know if you consider that off the board, but that's going to be my least, I guess, the least chalky stack that I'm going to probably try to play.
Wait, say that. I'm sorry. Which stack? I lost.
Miami against LAC.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I think that's interesting. I personally am on the running back side of things. I like the obvious guys. Davis. I think Sanders is my number 2 overall running back this week, followed by Duke Johnson.
Yep.
Aaron Jones. As much as I'm trying to fade him, I'm still going to have some of them.
Right.
I think Kenyon Drake is going to be super interesting if, in fact, he's good to go at 4.9, and I'm curious where the ownership will end up if we get that official word. I also think I think I've sort of talked myself on this show out of the Kamara thing, leaning more with the Jacobses as my higher spends, not really spending above the 6K range, except for maybe for a little bit of Aaron Jones here and there, because I want to spend up at my receivers, and I like these expensive receivers this week.
Yep.
Did you say your receivers?
Yeah, I mean, I just came up with Adams. It's just kind of like clear, like you said, if you could get him in, go get him in. Oh, the other one. I'm sorry. The other stack I'm interested in again is the Carolina. The Carolina receiver.
Yeah, so I love DJ Moore as a spend-ish down on receiver. I love Keenan Allen. I love everybody in this 68. So just look at the top range, which I don't usually feel this way. But Sheets, it's funny on the golf thing, and we'll see how it turns out. But I said at one point, that the way that this looks like it builds is you should just be building these 80 whatever hundreds to the 9800 range. Look, Dustin Johnson may win by a million things, but I just really liked a certain type of build, and sometimes I'll just commit to that. And I like this paying down at running back, but it's paying up for the receivers that maybe other people won't. If they're going to save, they're going to pay for Devontae. Maybe I skip Devontae, especially if the weather stays the way it is. Switch it over to Hopkins, Metcalf. Stephon Diggs obviously will have ownership. Michael Thomas won't have that much ownership. Keenan Allen will have ownership. Cooper Kupp. These are my favorite guys, and I think Metcalf, Thomas, and Hopkins, just because the way everything works, have to be lower owned than they should be, or than I think they should be. And then you go down to Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and back to Tyler Lockett in that other game. Those are my favorite guys, and it's mostly going to be expensive guys for me at the receiver position. The sneaky guy for me is Jalen Reagor for Philadelphia. And that whole Philadelphia Giants game, I think that there's pieces to use on both sides. And on the other side of the cheaper guys would be Shepard and Slayton. I know they've been terrible. A lot of it's game script because of game script. you can beat this Philly secondary. So I also am going to be using Sanders. So I could see myself playing 3 or 4 players from this game, even though it's unlikely that I'll use Carson Wentz or Daniel Jones.
When we get off, we should talk about maybe doing this live cut sweat thing.
Let's do it. I'm in.
Yeah, because not to transition too much already, but the last guy I thought I'd be worried about was going to be Matthew Wolf, and he's going to be my source of aggravation. I'm going to need a birdie out of him at least. So well,
that makes it for both of us. I'm a little stressed about that myself. I have that guy 45%, and he's in all of my top lineups right now for some reason.
Oh, we should definitely do that then.
So
let's hang up on these football people, right?
Okay.
And then
all right, guys. Hey, for Sheets, I'm Bobby. We'll see you guys at the top of leaderboards this weekend. Good luck out there, and hit us up with any questions.